So just a really quick introductions for our speaker today. I did invite two of my colleagues, Haider and Kartik, who are a security specialist, and dive a little bit more deep into some of the cybersecurity topics over here. So I'll have them to introduce themselves later on when they open the session here. Let's just take a really quick look, high-level agenda for the rest of the time. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, I think cybersecurity is really a very big topic here, right? As we're talking about security, there are really a lot of topics and tools we need to cover. It is very difficult to cover all that, even within an hour and a half of time we can allocate today. So the thought is, this morning we have the keynote sessions you heard, and we have some panel discussion, and also in New York City Cyber Command use cases that Chris presents. We'll follow by this is a more of dive a little bit deep into some of those technology and tools, because I know we have a broader audience over here. So I think the thought is really to level set, to give you some of the background in there in terms of the network security overview, right? We're going to talk about Cloud Armor, more from a DDoS perspective, and web application firewall perspective, and then we'll talk about a secure command center, followed by demos. And we may not be able to finish the lab we present to you, but I think the idea of which today is, at the end of an hour and a half, you guys all become security expert, and not really only in theory only, but we'll leave you the tools and the QwikLabs. You can either try to finish some of those today, or maybe at your own pace. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Haider.
Thanks, Daniel. So my name is Haider Whitwood. I'm a networking specialist supporting the global public sector organization here with Google Cloud team. I've been with Google for close to 2 years. Prior to that, I was a networking specialist with AWS, and prior to that, I was a full-time network engineer. So dealing with the cloud capabilities and what brings to the table with respect to networking and security is something that I've been doing for a while. And prior to that, I was, because I was designing and deploying and operating traditional networks, that also kind of give me good information about the the level of effort to deploy things outside of the cloud and secure them, and how to compare it to the cloud capabilities. What I will be talking today here primarily is the network security capabilities for Google Cloud in general. And then I'm going to have more focus on Cloud Armor as a product that's used for DDoS mitigation and WAF capabilities. My goal is to make this session interactive. So while we want to finish the first section with the slides, have your questions, and then switch after that to the QwikLabs for the hands-on experience, my goal is for you to learn more. So if you feel at any point, if you have a question that you want to add, to the chat window here on the side, or the unmute yourself and ask, feel free to do so, and we will take these questions as we go along. Eventually, there will also be a section for Q&A that we can have these questions as well. So let's get going with the security overview for Google Cloud at a high level. And speaking networking, there are 3 primary networking security capabilities provided with Google Cloud. The first one is really the most basic, the VPC firewalls. VPC firewalls is a layer 3-4 capability to traffic filter, to filter traffic. These rules can be applied for traffic between cloud resources, for example, 2 VMs that runs in the cloud, or a container and a VM that runs within the same VPC network or across multiple VPC networks. It can also be applied to filter traffic between cloud resources on premises, or between cloud resources and internet. So these firewall rules, usually you configure them, you apply them to VMs, you control the source, destination IPs and ports, and based on that, define an action if it's allowed or denied. A second tool that we provide is a VPC service control capability, which is shown here in the dotted blue line. Service controls is a technique that we provide to address data exfiltration and data theft concerns. So the idea here is, in brief, someone who have authorized access to your data, but you wanted to make sure that your data stays contained within a boundary. Service controls provide this capability, and it can be used to limit access and data transfer or API calls to pull data between your cloud components. For example, data can be only, like data exported to BigQuery can be only within the boundary that you define, or maybe objects, like object you save in Google Cloud Storage buckets can only be transferred to certain destinations in the cloud, already outside of the cloud, on premises of a private path, or to the internet of a public path. So data exfiltration is the primary use case for the VPC service control service. The last capability here is Cloud Armor, an identity and aware proxy, which is represented here by the green dotted line. This, by definition, is a layer 7 capability, because now we're talking about web traffic or identity aware proxy, which is a capability that will provide for authentication and authorization requests before it can be served to the backend contents, which is going to be more of our focus today. So Cloud Armor is the service that we will talk next on in more details, but you can think about it as a layer 7 capability when you compare it to something like VPC firewall rules, which operate based on source IPs, destination IPs, and ports, which is why layer 3 or 4 on the OSI model. So moving forward, and because we're going to talk about load balancers, it's really always important to revisit our TLS Everywhere model with Google Cloud. The TLS Everywhere pretty much means end-to-end encryption, starting from the client. And the client that's outside of the cloud need to access resource over internet. Usually these resources are hosted either on Google Cloud CDN or our global load balancers, external load balancers represented by the HTTPS load balancer or the SSL proxy load balancers. So those are global and external load balancers, and they provide capabilities for SSL offloading using customer managed keys. So these keys can be either customer owned. When I say keys, I mean certificates. So those could be customer owned certificates that are exported in the cloud to the cloud for management purposes, or they could be Google managed certificates, as long as, of course, the customer on the domain. With these SSL offloading capabilities, we will be doing the decryption for the traffic on the edge closer to the customer using the our Google front edge tier service. And we also provide capabilities with respect to policies, security policies that will control which protocols or versions of encryption are supported. So this will help customers plan for example, weak encryption protocols that are no longer treated as secure to not be used for SSL decryption on our global load balancers level. So that's the first connection from the client to the load balancer. And then from the load balancer to the backend, we provide that native encryption because that runs over Google backbone. And in the end results, you'll have an end-to-end encryption from the customer to the backend where the resource is hosted on Google Cloud. The Cloud Armor as a product will integrate with our external load balancer. So looking at this slide, we just talked about the load balancer being a global product. To add the load balancer capabilities, the Cloud Armor capabilities represented by geo-based filtering or IP allow deny lists or WAF-based products that will give you capabilities to do like pre-configured rules or custom rules to filter traffic based on custom metrics. You'll be able to deploy them on a Cloud Armor, and this will enable protection for the backends deployed behind our global load balancer. So Cloud Armor as a product will give you the feature of creating a security policies, and these security policies will be enforced on that communication between your load balancer and your backend. As a deployment option for Cloud Armor, it's flexible. What that means, when you host a workload behind our global load balancer and configure these security policies, any backend that is supported by the cloud load balancer will be able to get protected by these policies. And these backend types are multiple. For example, it can be like a VM, compute engine VM, where you run a web server and you configure this VM as a backend to your load balancer. Or it could be a GKE cluster, a Kubernetes cluster, basically. In this case, you are hosting your application in a containerized environment. Or it could be in a serverless service, like an app engine, where we provide a platform to host applications without the customer worrying about managing VMs, etc. Or it could be an external origin, like your data center, or maybe an application running on a different cloud platform. And the communication path in this case will go over internet. And you're going to present this backend to the load balancer in the form of a public IP address. So no matter what type of backend you want to protect, all of these backends are supported with our Cloud Armor. What does Cloud Armor provide? First level is layer 3 and 4 protection. What that means is that any session that is not well formed on a layer 3 or layer 4 level is protected by default. So there's no need for you to create rules that are special for this layer of protection. This is already managed for you by Cloud Armor. The other layer of protection is the layer 7 DDoS protection. And on that level, you can create custom rules that we're going to explain shortly. And you can engage our machine learning model to actually analyze your logs and give you results for our analyzing, where we can tag certain traffic as a possible threat and suggest rules that you can enforce to block that threat. And we can also add, and this is a new capability that's still in preview, rate limiting. And rate limiting will enable you to, let's say, limit the amount of requests or traffic that can be served for a specific user based on criteria that we define. So I mentioned a lot about these security policies. So the way or the structure they work is really simple. Security policy is something that you configure per backend. And as I mentioned, the backend could be a VM, a CDN, or a GKE cluster, or maybe a different backend running outside of the cloud. Within this policy, you create rules. Each one of these rules will have a condition, and eventually, if one of these rules that will be processed in order, if you have a condition that will match, we will go and see the action. And this action will be either allow, deny, or redirect to functions like ReCaptcha. So what is, taking a better look at that structure of the rule, the majority of really the flexibility that will come with the service is with how you can define these rules. So the rules, the condition of the rule is something that you can provision a pre-configured rule for, or you can write down yourself. And to write down these rules, you will use the common expression language, which we provide a complete reference guide for how you can write down custom rules. And it can do multiple things. This example, for example, in this screenshot, will look for a path request, like something in the path request that will be matched, for example, /admin. So if this context matched in the URL, this will trigger a matching statement. This rule will have an OR statement, and after that, it can be or traffic originated from the United States. And we have a complete reference for all of the country codes. So when you host an application, a local application, you can actually say that this application can only be accessed from a certain country, or you can prevent access from certain countries that you define as a high risk, or as maybe if this application is not expected to be accessed from certain part of the world, you can always write down policies to enforce that. Additional metrics that you can put in here, we have a request header based on the user agent, and that will be the browser type, or could filter based on IP addresses. So if this traffic matches a source IP address, and we provided 2 IP addresses here, now this match statement will be kind of matched. What that means is that an action will be taken, and the action specified here to deny the traffic. The error code provided, we have a number of them. You can provide 403, 404, or 502, which is bad gateway. So 403 forbidden, this is going to present a message in the browser that this is a forbidden request. And of course, the priority is the order the rule is being processed. Preview only mode is something that I recommend for customers to only log rules when they are new. So this rule, if you enable it to be in preview, will not drop the traffic. It will only log it. And then after log analysis, you can tune the rule or you can enforce it. Any questions so far about what I covered? Is this fast, slow, too technical? I will appreciate any feedback if you can put in the chat window, and I will also post for questions if you have any at this point. Okay, moving forward. As I mentioned, these firewall policies or security policies can be either custom, like the example I explained the previous slide, or they can be pre-configured. If you want to use the pre-configured rules, it's as easy as enabling the rule and doing any necessary tuning. So CloudArmor provide a set of pre-configured rules based on the OWASP signature based. And the OWASP is an open source signature base that's developed for the top 10 common web attacks. So these rules cover SQL injection, cross-site scripting, remote file insertion, Docker file insertion, a lot of things that you can see in this slide listed. And when you enable the rule, our recommendation is always to put it in a preview mode so you can see, analyze logs before you start enforcing. Usually with WAF products, it's not recommended to put a new rule in production in an enforcement mode before you actually measure the impact. Usually, these pre-configured rules need some tune-up. If this tune-up is possible, we do have a complete guide for how to tune up these rules to make sure you minimize false positives. Additional capabilities that really CloudArmor bring to the table here is the adaptive protection capability that we recently made generally available. Adaptive protection as a capability is really unique because it uses machine learning to analyze logs, and then after that it gives you predictions if this traffic, for example, is a possible attack. So it's give you a percentage of attack likelihood, and based on this percentage, we will recommend an action. So we don't enforce this action as a tool. So there is no possibility for the tool to block traffic. It will need a manual interaction from the owner of the service to enforce these rules. However, we suggest the rules, it's just a matter of enforcing them. So there will be multiple phases that the product take from a learning base when the first feature is first enabled, all the way to suggesting the rule and then a manual mitigation that to be done by the service administrator. Another new capability that's still in preview for CloudArmor is really the redirect to ReCaptcha. Redirect to ReCaptcha is a technique that heavily used to deal with bots. And with bots, you have a traffic generated by machines pretty much to overwhelm a site. So the challenge that ReCaptcha bring here with respect to pictures that need to be checked can be always used to differentiate if this is human or not human traffic. And after that, you can take an action. Like if this ReCaptcha challenge is met, then the action is to redirect the traffic to the backend. And if the ReCaptcha is not met, you can actually control which direction the traffic is going to go through. So this integration is really going to simplify things a lot for a lot of customers, because it will do it all from one place rather than going to multiple places. Um, so that really comes to the end of the networking security section. If there are no questions, I don't see any questions in the chat window. I'm going to pass it forward to Kartik, who's going to cover the security command center. And then both of us will take any questions at any time after that during the session. To you, Kartik. You are mute, Kartik.
Thanks, Haider. Yeah, thanks a lot, Haider, for an awesome overview on Cloud Armor and the networking capabilities that we have within Google Cloud. So the next topic that we are going to review today is on Security Command Center. So Security Command Center is one of the solution that we have within our security portfolio that provides complete visibility across all the different security events that are happening within Google Cloud and the assets that we are managing, and identify the vulnerabilities and detect threats and maintain compliance. So before we dive into the today's session, I'm Kartik Kodamsetti. I'm a customer engineer with Google Cloud based in Austin, supporting the global public sector team specialized in security. And I have been working with Google for the past uh, close to 2.5 years. And prior to that, I was at Oracle for close to like 10 years. So I've been with security space for the past 10 years, and we'd be reviewing the content related to Security Command Center in the next 30 minutes. And then we will do the QwikLabs right after it. During the time that we have for QwikLabs, I would request each one of you to try and create your QwikLabs account. So you can create that using the chat section. In the chat section, I have already pasted the instructions as to how to create your QwikLabs account. We'll review that step as well towards the end of this current presentation. So with that, let's dive into the Security Command Center section. So Security Command Center is, as I've illustrated, is used to gain the visibility and provide the near real-time visibility into the Google Cloud resources and policies through asset inventory and tracking. And we are able to discover the vulnerabilities by identifying the misconfigurations and web application vulnerabilities. And we can use Security Command Center to detect threats by identifying the malicious activities in the network and identifying suspicious activity in containers. And we can maintain compliance related to PCI DSS version 3.2.1 and ISO 27001, or for NIST 853, we are able to maintain the compliance for such frameworks using Security Command Center. So we have a broad set of tools that come with Security Command Center to provide a complete security portfolio that can help us take action and remediate and respond. So when we look at Security Command Center, we are able to get that oversight of your security within Google Cloud. And Security Command Center is a one-stop destination through which we can offer different capabilities to help you effectively manage security and risk within your Google Cloud environment. Security Command Center continuously monitors your Google Cloud environment to discover the assets and identify the misconfigurations and web application vulnerabilities in near real time. The first solution that we have within the Security Command Center is the Cloud Asset Inventory, which is very tightly integrated with Security Command Center. It helps us discover, monitor, and analyze all the assets in one single place. And Cloud Asset Inventory identifies the misconfigurations in your cloud environment using a built-in service called as Security Health Analytics. Security Command Center is able to provide, help us monitor and analyze all the assets in one single location. And we are able to use a built-in service called as Security Health Analytics, and through which we are able to monitor and analyze all the assets. And we are able to identify the web application vulnerabilities using Web Security Scanner, which is a built-in service for Security Command Center that identifies the web application vulnerabilities for applications deployed in App Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine, and Google Compute Engine. And through event threat detection, we can analyze the logs that were collected to identify the malicious activities. And through container threat detection, we are able to identify if there is any suspicious activity with regards to the deployments that are done in containers. And we use Google's threat intelligence and the latest detection capabilities to identify any threats, like how internally at Google we identify the threats while managing google.com or the other portfolios that we have. And through Security Command Center, we can provide an asset view that provides a real-time view of your resources and policies. And with regards to any changes to your inventory or identifying the security findings with each of the assets that we manage. And through Security Command Center, we provide that consolidated view through which we can identify the misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, and threats. And so Security Command Center, in a nutshell, provides that visibility and security findings and detailed view on how we can meet the compliance, and we can identify any sort of like recommendations with regards to security and find out the remediation steps to take actions on the security findings that have been identified and the compliance violations that we have. And we can send these findings to the broader security ecosystem, like a SIM tool, to remediate and respond to the security events that have been identified. So that's in a nutshell how Security Command Center works. And when we look at Security Command Center, we can use Security Command Center for Google tools such as binary authorization, or for Cloud DLP APIs, or for Cloud Armor, which we discussed just a minute ago. So Cloud Armor is able to provide the capability to prevent any threats such as cross-site scripting or any such attacks. And through Security Command Center, we are able to detect all those different sort of like threats, vulnerabilities, and misconfigurations. and we provide the findings for Forseti or for Google anomaly detection or for different partners. So we have different partners like McAfee, Cloudflare. So we can use the findings for broader ecosystem related to security as well through Security Command Center. So through Security Command Center, we can provide that centralized visibility and control over your Google Cloud data and resources. So when you look at compute instances, or you are trying to manage your bucket or network or Kubernetes pods, so we provide the complete view into your Google Cloud resources and provide that near real-time visibility into what exactly has happened, what changed in your asset inventory, and how do we respond to any issues that have that have arisen as part of the continuous monitoring that we have done. And we receive any notifications about the findings associated with your critical assets, and take action with regards to those security events that have been identified. And this is like a simple dashboard that is provided through security health analytics to identify the misconfigurations related to the severity, compliance, or for the project that have, and based on the findings that we have, we can take necessary actions. And we are going to see a detailed view on how this all works during the demo. And Security Command Center, specifically through Security Health Analytics, we are able to identify some common misconfigurations with related to publicly exposed buckets. So that's a very common issue in storage. And likewise, when we look at from a networking standpoint, uh, if we are overly permissive, we are using overly permissive firewall rules. And likewise, if monitoring is disabled for specific assets, making sure that we are able to identify those common misconfiguration mistakes. And if private cluster is disabled, or how compliant we are with related to the benchmarks that we have that are supported industry-wide, and how do we support against NIST 853 or PCI or ISO 27001 compliance. So those are like common misconfigurations that we are able to identify using security health analytics. And we talked about web security scanner in a couple of slides ago, so through which we are able to identify the web application vulnerabilities. So these are, like, say, the top 10 web application security risks, and we are able to use web security scanner to identify these sort of like security risks. And this can help us protect our applications that we deploy within like App Engine or any such services within Google Cloud. And event threat detection is the next service that we are going to review, and is powered by the industry-leading threat intelligence framework that we use within Google. And it provides that near real-time detection against the platform, network, and the compute logs. And this is a simple view on how we are able to find the security findings with related to event threat detection. And as you can see, we have threats related to crypto mining or a brute force attack, and how many of those do we have, and what are the active threats. So it's a detailed view with related to threats that can be provided through event threat detection. And through container threat detection, we are able to provide the pre-built detectors for top attacks, such as added binaries or reverse shells or added libraries. And we integrate with the Security Command Center for any sort of like security findings. and we provide that one-click deployment for Google Kubernetes engine. So, the beauty about Google Cloud is that common integration with cloud logging, and we are able to provide that detailed view on events that have occurred on the applications that are deployed within Google Cloud, and provide that simple visibility. So once the containers are created, and if we have like say common issues that we identify, we are able to detect those using the container threat detection. And overall, Security Command Center is a security management and data risk platform for Google Cloud that can help us prevent and detect threats. And with that, let me just dive into the demo section, unless if there is any questions that we have. Okay, so with regards to the demo, so let me just share that screen. So this is how Security Command Center view would look like. And as you can see, we are able to identify the active vulnerabilities over time by severity. So you can see that we have 12 critical event vulnerabilities that have been identified, and we have 721 high vulnerability events. And what are the new threats? When were they identified? So it just gives you a findings by, like say this, by the category like cross scripting. How many findings do we have? So how many open firewall findings do we have? So depending on the different findings, we can identify how many of those do we have currently, and we can identify what are the threats that we have. So as you can see here, we have one threat that is in high severity level, and we can identify what is that event is all about. And you can see more information on this in the findings section as well. So just to understand what this finding is all about, and what was the event time, and what is the resource that is associated with this finding. So just a complete visibility on the threats and the findings that we have within within Security Command Center for the assets that we are managing. And in the vulnerabilities section, so you would be able to see for cross scripting, how many do we have currently, and what are the standards that we are aligning by. And so it just gives you a complete visibility on the vulnerabilities that we have across all the resources that we are currently deployed on Google Cloud, so that this gives you complete visibility on uh, the the events that we have, and how do we prioritize based on the severity level. So this can be a good snapshot as to how we can make sure that we can identify the potential weaknesses for the resources that we are deploying within Google Cloud. And through compliance, we are able to provide that simple dashboard view to review how we are doing against the industry standards such as CIS and PCI. And you can see that we have enforced 128 controls, and so we have only 21% that is passed. And we can see how we are doing against specific compliance and best practices such as CIS and PCI, NIST 853, ISO 27001. So these reports are something that you'll be able to share it with the auditors, saying that, hey, I'm able to comply with most of these controls that we have as part of this compliance frameworks. And that can be a good asset for the auditors to review, to understand how we are doing from a compliance standpoint for all the resources that we are deploying within Google Cloud. And likewise, for all the assets, we can see how we are doing with related to the specific assets that you're interested in. And in the findings section, we reviewed it just a minute ago about the findings that we have. And here you can see what are the sources that we have. So these are the assets that we currently have within this organization. And you can see the total findings and how we are doing from a web security scanner standpoint, or related to container threat detection, or with container security health analytics. So how we are doing from a findings standpoint with related to this individual services. So this can be a good asset. And as I've mentioned, it is not just for Google Cloud solutions as well. So this can be a dashboard for the partner solutions as well. And you can provide that findings in a single dashboard. So this can be a great resource for the security analyst, so that they can identify if they have any findings related to security. So this is on a very high level overall view on what are the capabilities that we have within within Cloud Armor and Security Command Center, and the broader network and security capabilities that we have within Google Cloud. So with that, we'll dive into the hands-on event. So that would be through our QwikLabs platform. So for that, you can access the URL https ce.quiklabs.com to join, and you can provide your details and click on create your account. And once you're done with that, you should be able to see a course called as Security and Identity Fundamentals. And if you are having any issues, I'm happy to work with you to make sure that you're able to set up your account, and you're able to start with doing some labs related to web security scanner. And there are other labs as well that you can try it in your free time. So I have this lab available for a few days. So if you're interested in specific security labs, you're welcome to try those as well. So with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer that now.
Hi, this is Ernest.
Yep.
About the misconfiguration detections, I see that you got VM, you got Kubernetes. What about Cloud SQL?
That's a great question. So with related to Cloud SQL, so as long as the assets are being managed by so Cloud SQL, we can forward the logs into cloud logging, and that can be a way through which we are able to identify how if there are any events related to logging as well with related to Cloud SQL. So specifically on in-depth security events related to Cloud SQL, I'll probably need to research a little bit, and we'll be able to get back to you on that. So any other questions with related to Security Command Center? So now let's get started with the QwikLab in the interest of the time. So what we would be doing right now is share a tab. So I've added all of you to this lab. So I see a few of you have already enrolled, and some of you are yet to create your account. So it's pretty easy. So let me just sign out. And so here click on, so access the URL ce.quiklabs.com. So then you should be able to click on join. And once you click on join, you provide your first name, last name, email, and the company name and the password. And once you click on create an account, then you should be able to sign in into QwikLabs tool using the email and password that you have given. And then you should be able to see a course called as Security and Identity Fundamentals. And using that, so it would be in this similar tile, in purple tile. And that's the classroom that we would be. So it's named as Security and Identity Fundamentals. Let me know if anyone is having any issue related to finding that lab.